0, 1, 2, 3. Let's get started.
Oh, that's real good.
All right, so I finally pulled the trigger and I got myself a set of amp research power steps from realtruck.com, and there's something really cool about these, and that's really what pushed me over the edge to finally make the move, make the purchase, and do the upgrade I've been wanting to do since the day I bought the Broncosaurus. Let's take a look at this. Let's see how it's packaged, and then let's go get this thing installed. Wow, that is packaged really nicely. We got the hardware kit, the rear idler linkage, and the motor linkage, and of course the steps. Really impressed with the packaging. I'm not concerned at all with any damaging, and I did notice that even on the box it says new improved packaging. So let's go ahead and go get this thing installed. Easy enough.
Before I start any installation, I always take out all the parts and do a detailed inventory. Last thing you want to do is get elbow deep in the middle of an installation and find out you're missing parts. Now, if you have the factory install bar, let me show you what to do first. When you're doing these, just loosen the top ones. Don't take them all the way out. Loosen these 3 top ones. And then remove the bottom ones all together. These are going to slide out, but it'll hold it up for you so the rail don't just fall on your chest. So remember, make sure you do that. All right, once you remove the last one of the bottom, this will you'll just slide it towards the back of the Bronco. Comes off just like that.
All right, so let's go ahead and get this installation started. Now, as you know, I am a prior Air Force veteran, and one thing that we did in the Air Force was we were very strict on technical orders, following things by the book, and that's what we're going to do here. That's something that I still believe in because it just makes the most sense. Don't skip around, all right? Don't try to figure this out. I got one of my best friends, man, if he buys anything, he just starts putting it together, and it never goes together right. It always has issues. So I always tell him, like, man, quit wasting your time. Quit trying to make a shortcut because it's just going to end up being a long cut. And just follow the instructions. That's why they give them to us. So follow them. Now, I want to point something out for you that got me on this instructions for these amp research power step visions. Do you remember back in the day in class when you got that test that said, make sure you read all the questions before you begin the test? All right. You know, it was like a social experiment. It was one of those where it starts giving you simple questions that you answer, but then at the very end, the last thing it tells you to do is to put your pencils down and you're done, which would mean you didn't have to do any of the test. Okay, well, that applies here. Not a big fan of the way they did this very first page. On page 2, technically, it tells you the installation guides and it's showing you to put the motor together. Now, the one thing I did miss was it says on step 5, but still, I just don't like the placement of this. So make sure you don't get tricked or caught in that like I did, because I'm not going to lie, I actually did this first because it was on the first page. So make sure you're paying attention to things like this on here. But anyway, so let's go ahead and start going through. We already did the parts list. You saw that. I went through it. Love having that in the instructions. That's a must. So let's begin. All right, so what I'm going to do a little differently on this video is I'm going to put all the instructions over here to my left so you can follow as we go through. I'm going to talk you through it. I've already done the installation, so I'm going to point out things to watch out for as well. Normally in my videos, I film the installation as I do it. But what I'm thinking about doing in this one was there was so many times where I found like tips and tricks that I could do better that I'm going to share them with you so you don't make the same mistakes as I did. We're going to make this as efficient as possible. So here we go. Steps 1 and 2 are just going to be talking about putting the linkages on. Very simple, okay? It's going to be the same for the driver's side as it is for the passenger side. All right, so if we're looking at the front linkage right now, this is being your bottom bolt, this being your top bolt. We're going to lightly put in the bottom bolt because as you can see, it's got this cutout where we're going to slide this on it. Once that's on, then you are able to put the top bolt in and tighten it, but we're not going to torque it down yet. We need to make sure that there's going to be some play in it. Now for the back, it's going to look about the same. You've got the slit that we're going to put in there lightly before you attach the linkage. Put the linkage on, and then you are able to access the top bolt, which is up here. Bottom bolt, top bolt. Tighten them down, but not over tighten. Now that you're through steps 1 through 3, we're going to move on to step number 4. Now that our linkages are on the sides, remember, we're not torqued all the way down yet. We are just hand tight, or not hand tightened, but we're tightened down, just not torqued. We're going to install the boards. Now, this is very important that you notice in these instructions, there's steps for the Ford Ranger and there's steps for the Bronco. Okay, so for the Bronco, we're going to make sure that we've got 9.5 inches from the edge of the bracket to the end of the board. 9.5 inches. That's where we're going to line up to make sure that we have the torque screws in the right position. Very important. We're going to use the Torx head screws. We're going to put those in, and again, we're going to get them tight, but we're not going to torque them down yet. Okay, we want to make sure that we are at that 9.5 level. Now, I am doing this on my 4-door. 2-door is going to be different, but this installation, we are just going through the 4-door installation for this. So that's going to be steps 4 and 5 completed. All right, so for steps 6 and 7, all right, this is going to be routing the RGB wire that is on the front linkage. That's what's controlling the vision LED strip that's on the board. We're going to be routing it and making sure that it's not going to get crimped when the boards are in movement. Now, I do like the little clips that Amp Research included with this that runs along the board. I wish they included more. Just because it still doesn't cover it all the way. I wish there was enough to cover that entire space, or just make one large one to go there. Little suggestion for you, Amp. But real easy. We're just popping these in. That's keeping the wire running actually to the linkage. That's step 6. Step 7, one thing that you definitely want to make sure that you're doing is you're cleaning everything that you're going to put any adhesive on with alcohol. That's a very important step because if there's dirt and dust on any of this stuff, it's not going to stick well. It's going to fall off. If that wire gets caught in your linkage and gets cut, it's going to be a lot more work for you that you don't want to have to deal with. So let's make sure we do this again the right way the first time. Now, here's another thing. On these little clips, you want to make sure that you've got the skinny clips. Now, mine didn't come with it. I'm not going to lie. I think those parts were missing in my kit. What I ended up doing was using just some extreme weather electrical tape, and I taped it around. Now I don't know if that's going to hold up or not. We're gonna see. I've also reached out to AMP, and they are going to send me some of the other clips to put on there. I actually went to Home Depot. I went to Harbor Freight. I went to Ace, and shockingly enough, I couldn't find those clips. I was actually really surprised that I couldn't find anything like that. But again, what you want to do is you want to route that wire as I'm showing you here to make sure that that wire is staying out of being crimped when those boards are in movement. All right, you're going to want to make sure you're testing that by hand. And this is why the motor is not supposed to be on yet, is so you can move these boards. Because once that motor goes on, you are not moving those boards by hand. Okay, so another little tip for you. Because again, remember, I put the motor on first and found out the hard way that I couldn't move it with my hand. Had to take it off, and that was a pain. Anyway, let's not make that mistake. Here's another thing we haven't talked about here. We haven't ran the harness yet. I had a slight problem with the harness that I'm going to share with you that I also shared with realtruck.com and AMP research team. And we'll kind of go through that here in just a second. I would have liked to seen that step already be before this, because obviously we can't plug it in if the harness isn't there, right? But if you're following these steps, it's telling us to connect a harness that isn't there yet, okay? Another thing just to keep in mind there. And now we are going to extend the bars all the way down, and we're installing the motor. Now we have to go back to that first page that we talked about, and this is telling you how to install it. Again, it's a really easy installation. It's just lining it up, putting those 2 bolts in, and going from there. It does tell you, see page 2 for motor install, but I just feel like they should have put it right there in the instructions. Chronological. So now we are through step 10. Now this is another thing to make sure you're paying attention when you get to this, because step 11 is actually for the Ford Ranger. Steps 11 through 17 are from the Ford Ranger. So obviously we're installing this on a Bronco. We're going to skip steps 11 through 17. All right, step 18 now for us Ford Bronco owners. This is where we're going to be installing the wiring harness and running the harness from the engine, underneath, and then back up into the cabin. So the first thing you want to do, you want to go ahead and remove all 3 fuses from the wiring harness. We don't want to be running power to anything just yet. So make sure we're removing those 3 fuses as we do this, okay? Now, the instructions talked about mounting the controllers in front of the battery. I wasn't able to do that. As you can see here, I mounted mine behind the battery, and I haven't zip tied them in yet, but I'm going to clean it up a little bit. But they sit nicely in that area. And the reason why I wasn't able to do it in front was because the length of the harness running to the passenger side, the way that I routed it, which is the way that we're going to talk about here, I couldn't reach the back motor with the harness that routed that way. I wish that the singular. Why do I have such hard times with words that have like the U in it? Similar, I say similar. My wife makes fun of me all the time. Singular. Okay, that works, right? Anyway, the yellow wire, all right, on the harness, they've got it positioned after the RGB harness, okay? And they did a great job on the harness. Harness looks great. It's very well protected by the conduit. I didn't want to cut any of that. I wanted to leave it as is. I wish that the yellow wire was about 2 to 3 feet closer to the battery terminals, at least for the Bronco. I don't know if it helps for the Ranger, and if this is why they did this. But what I had to do is I ran the whole harness down. Then I had to take the yellow wire and fish it back up to the grommet to run inside the cab of the Bronco, as you see here. Again, it's all protected by conduit. I zip tied it, made it real clean. But if it would have been only 2 feet or 3 feet higher, closer to the battery, then I wouldn't have had to fish that down. I could have fished it right immediately, then pulled the rest of it down. Just my opinion on that aspect. But again, they probably did it because it works better for the Ford Ranger, and it still works this way for the Bronco. So we're routing the yellow harness back up once it's pulled all the way down. Again, we are, let's see, for the OBD. Now, this is where mine is a little different. I'm already using my OBD to port by two other of my items for my dash cam and for my exhaust system, as you've seen in prior videos. So I did get the Y harness from Real Truck. I am actually just tucking it behind. I'm not showing that aspect because your setup is going to be different from my setup. Once we've got the OBD to installed, now this was the by far the worst part of the installation for me, because I am the least flexible person that I know, and I felt like I was having to be a contortionist. The Olympics had just finished in Paris when this is being filmed, so I felt like I needed Simone Biles to come and do this part of the installation for me. One, because she's small. Two, because she's freaking awesome. It'd have been cool to meet her. And three, because yeah, I don't bend that way. Just doesn't work. So this part was difficult for this guy. But again, the instructions make it really easy. We're disconnecting the harness that's going to be up on the side fiber wall, and then we're connecting the gray with orange stripe to our white wire. And we're connecting the purple with the orange stripe to the blue wire from the OBD. It's just those things are so small, and getting that back up, man, my back is hurting right now just picturing what I went through. Just take a moment. Sorry. Okay. Okay, we're on step 20 now. Now, this is where we're getting that yellow wire into it. Step 20 was a little confusing to me. It talked about peeling it back, having extra wire. I had no extra wire because I ran it, again, like I said, all the way down and then fished it back up. So I didn't have to cut any wire off. Same grommet I've used in so many of my other videos, showing it to you here. That's where it came through. Now, here's a tip that I hope you catch that I didn't at first. When I first put this in, and you notice you have to disconnect that harness that's on the firewall on the side to do the contortionist wire connection part, I forgot to plug it back in. Drove my vehicle, the windows weren't working at all, and I was getting some error messages, and I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, did I connect it to the wrong wires? I started trying to do the window reset. Nothing was working. And then I thought about it and I was like, oh my gosh, I bet I didn't plug that connector back up. And I didn't. So I was very happy when I plugged it back up and everything just went back to normal. But don't make my mistake. After you're done putting the wires on, you've put up the OBD port, plug the harness back up. Save yourself the hassle and the heartache and do that yourself. All right, so now we're good. We have pretty much, we're getting close. We're almost done with this entire process. All right, so now all that's left to do really is install the LED lights. Now, as you saw in a prior video, I did pinch weld covers over my pinch welds, and I was able to just remove one of the bolts, holes already there. It was perfect. There was some grommets that were included with the kit. I actually bought some larger ones. Bought those at Harbor Freight. It was $5 for a huge kit. Anyway, put those grommets in, ran the wires through, connected those. That's simple to do. Again, make sure that you clean the area on the Bronco, especially here because it's dirty down there. Hey, even you mall crawlers, it's dirty enough to where you need to clean that with the alcohol. The one thing I'll also recommend that you do here is pretend that you're getting in your vehicle where your foot is naturally going to go, and make sure that's where you're placing your LED lights. Okay, you don't want your LED lights too close. You don't want them too far apart. You want them right to be where your foot is going to step. So make sure you do that. On the butt connectors, once you've got those connected for the LED lights, you're going to heat shrink those down. Make sure that they're protected from the elements. We are now installing the harness onto the motor mount and then putting the cover on and the two little clips Two little clips were a little difficult. I used a very skinny flat-headed screwdriver to push those in. Not a big deal there at all. Once that's in, we are installing the fuses. So go back. Now, you will notice that there are two 30 amp fuses, one 10 amp fuses. If you didn't mark your fuse casing, it's easy. Just look at the wires. Two of them will be thick, one of them will be skinny. Skinny one gets the 10, thicker ones gets the 30s. Now we're done. We have done the installation, so we're going to test it out. We're just going to open the door, pray they come down. Close the door, pray they go up. And there you go. You've just completed the installation of the AMP Research vision boards. And you probably did it a lot faster than I did. All right, so now that you've got the installation done, we've got to download the app. I'm going to tell you, this app is slick. I like this app. I'm actually impressed with this app.
But the most innovative aspect of the PowerStep Vision is you can easily customize your experience with a free app installed on your Apple or Android device. Now you can deploy the steps while the doors are closed so you can step up on them while you wash the truck. You can also keep them from deploying, like if you're off-road and you don't want the step to hit an obstacle. You also have total control of the lighting system on the side of the step. You can set the color to white, amber, or any other color in the app's color spectrum. You can even set to a different color when you drive than when the step is out.
I was worried at first because I was like, you know what, AMP Research don't really have, you know, these getting into lighting. This is brand new for them. So I was worried that it was going to be, you know, a little quirky, but it doesn't. It's responsive, it's quick. All right, y'all, so that's it. I will tell you, at the Great Smoky Mountain Bronco Stampede 2024, my vision boards were the highlight of my build. I was a participant in the little contest. Didn't win. Oh, well. But so many people were coming up and asking me questions about the vision boards. They love the way they look. You can actually even see the lights during the daytime. I'm really impressed with the boards. I love them. My wife loves them. Definitely makes it easier for her and the kids to get in and out compared to the factory boards. I would definitely give them a thumbs up. But what I like even more is the service I got from realtruck.com. During the installation, I had a couple of those issues that I already mentioned to you. Called them up. They were extremely knowledgeable. You know, it's rare that you call into a customer service and the people actually know what they're talking about. Like, I could tell these people were not just reading from a script, that they had actually had a hand in possibly even developing these parts. Another thing I will add is at the Great Smoky Mountain Bronco Stampede, I was having a slight issue with my vision boards, and it ended up being my fault. It was something I did incorrectly. But Real Truck had a booth there, huge booth, phenomenal deals, by the way. And two of the guys, they told me to bring the Bronco up at the loading dock after the show, brought it up. Man, it was hot. It was super hot. They were on their backs, on the concrete, looking at the installation, showing me what I did wrong or things that I could try. And it fixed my issue like that. But it was just really cool that they actually cared enough to take their time to come out, get on their backs on the hot pavement up there in Tennessee and help me out. So, hey, I hope you like this video. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. I've got over 40 videos now on the Bronco, Bronchosaurus, and there's more to come. There's more to come. I bought some other things from Real Truck that I'm going to be doing on a video coming up soon that I'm really excited about. And I got a new series coming out called #Bigfoot Drives. I'll give you a little sneak peek right here.
Check out #Bigfoot Drives on all your the social medias.
Till next time, catch you on the flip side. It's coming. It's coming. Oh, left jab.